Hey guys, welcome back to Jen Loves Nursing. On today's installment, I wanted to talk to you guys about an issue that is brought to my, not an issue, I'm sorry, a question that I'm asked quite regularly, not necessarily here on YouTube, but in real life, and it's my experience as a hospital CNA or PCT. My husband and I lived in Utah for about 3 years, and during that time, I had decided after the birth of my third child that I was ready to finish college. Oh my gosh, I'm already stuttering. I had taken a hiatus from school when I got pregnant with my first, and I was a stay-at-home mom for a few years, and I decided after the birth of my third child that I was ready to go back to school. At that time, I didn't realize that we would be moving back to California, and one of the prerequisites for the nursing, almost every single nursing program in Utah, is to attain your certified nursing assistant license. And so they have nursing assistant schools everywhere because of this issue. And I don't mean issue, but I know a lot of people who did not use their CNA license, and I know a lot of people who did. My CNA class was filled with potential nurses, PAs, because almost every single healthcare career school in Utah requires a CNA license, basically because they want you to have clinical hours before you get into school. Well, PA, you have to have clinical hours, but the nursing thing, I think they just want you to have a really good idea of fundamentals, I'm assuming, even though they go over it in nursing school. But I decided that I really wanted to use my CNA license because I wanted to get a really good feel for the career path that I'm choosing. And I knew that I wanted to work in a hospital. So my ultimate goal was to work in a hospital as a CNA. Now, there was this grotesque rumor in my area that the only way you could get a job in a hospital, in the hospital system where I worked in Utah, was if A, you knew somebody that worked there, B, you were in nursing school, you had finished your first rotation of clinicals in nursing school, or C, had just like a ton of experience as a CNA or in the medical field, CNA preferably. So I knew that I would need to get some experience under my belt before I could truly apply. So when others were totally grossed out by the thought of working in a nursing home or a skilled nursing facility or a long-term care facility, I was utterly excited. And I know that sounds so weird, but I saw it as a potential to learn and execute nursing skills, because as we all know, CNA work is basically fundamentals of nursing. So it's just the basics of nursing. It's not the advanced stuff we learn in nursing school. So I saw it in my mind at that time. This is basically nursing work that I'm doing. It's awesome. I get to do that. Great. So I worked in a long-term care facility, and then I worked in a rehab facility and a home health type place. And I did that for about a year, and I started applying for hospitals, and I was literally going to interviews 3-4 times a week for hospital jobs. And I finally had 2 interviews on one day for surgical transplant and for neurology. And I think I've kind of talked about that in another video. And I was offered both positions. In the long run, I had to decide which floor I wanted to take. And I basically chose surgical transplant because it was more of a critical care slash med surg department. And so I knew that the variety of diagnoses I would see there would be a lot greater than on the neurology department, because it would mostly be very specific cases. And I was so right. And I don't regret that decision because I've seen it so much. Okay, so working as a CNA on a critical care hospital unit basically means that you are hands-on with the nurses. You get to help do so much more than you would otherwise. And I will be a better nurse, and I will be a better student because of the experience and the time I spent on my surgical transplant unit in Utah. I worked at a level 1 trauma center, and you know, I wasn't specific, even though that was my home floor. When employee census was high and patient census was low, they would float us to other floors. So we got to go to the tele floor, and our floor was essentially tele dependent as well. But at our hospital, the tele floor was basically a floor that was tele stationed. We had to go down to this floor to get our tele monitors and bring them back up to our floor. We would go to tele. We would go to oncology. We would go to the CVICU, which is basically the heart and lung ICU. We would go to oh my gosh, I just had a huge brain fart. The bone floor. Oh gosh, I just had a brain fart. We'd go there. We'd go to rehab. We'd go to all kinds of places. Sometimes you would get asked to go on a sit, which is basically a 1-to-1. It's a patient who is a threat to themselves or others, and you would sit with them, and you would be their one-on-one caregiver for 12 hours. This is a good time to do homework. So a basic day in the life of a hospital CNA is, I worked the graveyard shift, so I would come in at 6:30 p.m. and I would take a report from the AM or from the day aides. Nurses would come in at 7 to do report. I would be assigned anywhere from 5 to 7 patients at a time, and within those 5 to 7 patients, I would have 1 or 2 different nurses, and I would be working with those nurses as a team. I was basically that nurse's eyes and ears for those patients. It was my responsibility to take vital signs, to do ADLs for that patient, whether they are, because it was surgical transplant, that was our main job there. If we had surgical transplant patients, there was a protocol that these surgical transplant patients had to abide by. For example, you have to stand up within an allotted amount of hours after surgery and be walking by a certain amount of, a day after surgery. Crazy, I know. You would think that a transplant patient would get to rest, but they don't get to rest. They are up and going quickly. They want them to heal. So I would go around. I would do my rounds that included, like I said, vitals, ADLs. If patient, I would check IVs to see if the IVs were infiltrated. If they were infiltrated, I would let the nurse know. Usually if it was infiltrated and I told the nurse and she gave me the okay, I would then get to remove the IV. As a CNA in a hospital, the scope of practice is different in a hospital for a CNA in Utah, because they basically can pay for their aides to do different work. As an aide, you don't usually get to remove catheters or IVs or on-cue balls, and you have to do that kind of thing at my hospital. And I know how to remove a catheter, and I know how to insert a catheter because of working there. I was, elbows deep in a lot of procedures that nurses needed help with. That's why I know how to insert a catheter. Although we were not allowed to insert, just a regular catheter. We were allowed to do straight catheterization, so I was able to straight catheter. We got to work with JP drains and bulbs. So if a patient had bulbs from their surgery, we got to empty those. We would empty ostomy, colostomy, ileostomy bags. I got to see a wide variety of diagnoses. Because we were the surgical transplant unit, obviously we saw kidney, pancreas, and liver transplants. We would see those post-op, pre-op, and then of course maintenance, and any kind of complications that have to do with any of those. I've seen hepatic encephalopathy. I've seen that a ton of times. My hair is very big today, you guys. I didn't straighten it. Well, I kind of straightened it. That's why it's straight. Otherwise, it'd be crazy curly. But we were also the GI unit, so we would get a lot of GI cases, and we were surgical overflow as well, hospital overflow. So I would see APPEs, which is appendicitis, basically a burst appendix, SBOs, small bowel obstructions, diverticulitis. Oh gosh, what else? I've seen mastectomies, double mastectomies. It was so amazing to see. The things that we got to see there were just insane. And I will be a better nurse because I know how to, I have this foresight that I didn't have before. I will be better to my aides because I know what it's like. I've been there. And I think that is so huge. I think it is so huge whenever you are a nurse that used to be an aide, because A, you're a better nurse, and B, you know how to treat your aides. Because someone asked me one time, what does CNA stand for? And I said bottom of the barrel, because literally we are the bottom of the barrel. And I urge you, nurses who've never been CNAs, be kind to your aides. Remember that they're doing jobs that you don't always have to do. And I know that I'm going to be the kind of nurse that if I walk into a room and my patient's ileostomy bag is full, I'm not just going to call my aide and say, hey, can you come in and change this? I'm going to go ahead and change it. Or if I come in and my patient has, if my patient is, if there's BM, if there's bowel all over the bed, whether it be from regulatory ways or from the bags that they have, from their ostomy bags, I'm not just going to call the aide and say, come in and clean this up for me. I'm going to call the aide and I'm going to say, hey, you want to get me some sheets? Because I'm going to clean this up and I need some help. There's nothing that I'm going to be too good for, nothing that my aide can do that I'm too good to do. That's the one thing I took out of being a CNA. I urge anyone who is going to get their CNA or going to nursing school, use your CNA license if you have to get it. Or if you aren't sure if you want to go to nursing school, get your CNA license. Strive to work in a hospital. It's the best place to see a wide variety of procedures and diagnoses and patients, and what they, you really get a true understanding of the nursing profession. I got to participate in emergency medical responses, while doctors and nurses are taking all kinds of, coags and tests all around me and getting ready to, and right here, I'm saying they're doing vital signs and I'm in the middle of it. It's intense at times, and it's what totally made me understand that I really want to be a nurse. So if you want to be a CNA, I highly suggest being a hospital CNA. And I highly suggest, if you want to be a nurse and you just want to know a little more about the field, you aren't sure what you get to do, be a CNA first. You'll really get to see it. And yeah, guys, I have like 2 more weeks until I find out if I get into my nursing program. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching. I want to say thank you to all my brand new subscribers. I get those emails, and keep on nursing, guys. We all do it because we love nursing. I know I do. Bye.